Because of some confusion toward the end of our Week 8 class, I want to take some time to go over this week's assignment and give you kind of a step-by-step process of how to deal with the assignment and get it submitted. In order to demonstrate this, I'm going to go to brackets and I'm going to create a new project. I'll do this as we have for other projects in the class. And it doesn't matter what you call the project, but I'm just going to call it Week 8 After Class Demo. You can call it whatever you want. When we do that, we end up with an empty class project. I'm going to create a new folder. Again, as we do in this class, by default, I'm going to use the file name index.html. We're then going to copy the code that I provided as part of the Week 8 source files in the announcements within Canvas. So I'll just copy that and paste it into our file. Next, we'll move on to step 3 of the instructions. It's asking you to look for the script within the HTML file. It gives you a hint of saying the script will be from lines 12 through 18 and on line 23. Next, the assignment wants you to move the JavaScript code out of the HTML file I gave you and into its own JavaScript file named script.js. Now remember, we've talked about how best practice would be that you're going to want to have a separate JavaScript folder. So the next thing I'm going to do in the projects folder is I'm going to create a new folder called JS. Now you could create it JavaScripts, you could call it scripts, whatever you'd like. Then within there, I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new file. And the assignment is pretty specific about what this file should be named, and it's script.js. Now, best practice would be that any JavaScript file should have an extension of JS. So whatever your script name is, .js. You're then asked to remove this JS code from the HTML file and put it in its own JavaScript file. Now, keep in mind, even though the assignment says the JavaScript starts on line 12 and extends to line 18, not everything there is JavaScript. Remember, your script opening and closing tag would not be considered part of JavaScript. The script opening tag, which is seen in part of line 12, is actually an HTML tag saying everything after this until the tag closes on line 18 is your script. So we're going to take out everything from the start script tag to the end script tag, and I'm going to actually cut it using a Control X, and I'm going to paste it into my script.js file. So now essentially what we've done is we've taken all of the script in that section of the code and moved it to the JS file. Now remember, in your assignment, you're also asked to move the code that is down here. And again, we're not going to take the script open and closing tag, just the items between the script open and closing tag. And we're going to move that to the script.js file. Next, we're going to remove the empty script tags. Now we're going to link to the JavaScript file. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a link from the HTML file to the JavaScript file. The way we're going to do that is we are going to place a script tag. And we're going to specifically tell the HTML where or the source of the script. When we do this, we get a hint from brackets. It's going to first of all tell us there's a JS directory. And if we remember, we built our script in the JS directory called script.js. We'll go ahead and close out this tag. When we do, it automatically creates a closing script tag. So now the script is linked. The next thing we may want to do is take a look and see how the code looks for us. So I'm going to save the HTML. And we'll make sure that the script has been saved as well. And we know it hasn't because it has a little dot next to the name up at the top bar of the brackets program. Then we'll view the HTML. When we do, we get the ability to enter our numbers. And it gives us the answer to 3 times 3 equals 9. Now, in the class time, we did build a more complex calculator that did other things. But for this assignment, at this point, all it needs to do is multiply the two numbers. So this is working so far. Now let's go back to the directions. On step 7, we're asked to remove the words "the answer is" from the HTML. So we're in the HTML file, and it's asking us to remove the phrase "the answer is." So we're going to do that now. But we want "the answer is" to show up within the results. So we should ask ourselves how we're going to do that. The assignment is telling us specifically to include that phrase within the script. So let's move to the script. Now if we read step 7, this is a little complex, and this is where we may have got off track a little bit in class. It says to remove "the answer is" from the HTML file. We just did that. And add it as a string in quotation marks to the X at the end of the JavaScript file. Okay, so what does this all mean? Well, the X is where the answer is going to be echoed, displayed. Some people would even say printed to the screen. But we want to print more than the X, because the X is the answer. But we want the phrase "the answer is" to come before that. And the way we can do that is we can put parentheses around the X, and then we'll add a little bit in front of the X, like this. Put a single quote, "the answer is." Now then we're going to put a plus sign. And remember, plus sign is not an arithmetic operator at this point. We showed that in class. It actually is combining the string "the answer is" with the answer. It's concatenating. Now you may notice that I have a little spelling error here. We're going to get that fixed right now. The answer is, in the step 7, it does talk about how anything to the right of the equal sign is what gets written to the document or to the screen, to the web page. So at this point, it should say "the answer is" and then the answer based on the numbers that were given by the user. We'll go ahead and save this. Then we'll go down to the HTML file and we'll look at it again. So one number is 4, the other number is 5, and we should get "the answer is 20. Now we have a little problem here. As we're looking at this, we do have the phrase "the answer is" and then the answer, but there's an aesthetic issue. What would we do with the script language? What would we do with the code to make it a little more readable? And essentially what I'm talking about is how would we add a space between "the answer is" and 20? Well, there's a few different ways to do this. The simple way here is I'm just going to add a space to the end of the phrase "the answer is." We'll save this. And then we'll reload the page. This time we'll put some other numbers in. 4 and 7. Hopefully we'll come up with 28. The answer is 28. And now it's beginning to look more aesthetically pleasing. You may want to do some other work with it, and you can, like capitalizing the word "the." We'll save this file again and look at it one more time. Six times 7 is 42. All of a sudden it's starting to look more attractive. Now what if we wanted to add one more piece? And this isn't required for the assignment, but maybe we want a period at the end of 42. Let's go back to the script. How would we do that here? I would suggest that we're going to concatenate another string at the end. So we'll put a plus symbol, and then in quotes, we'll put a period. So we have a string, the number that is created through the calculation of the script, and then a period, a literal period at the end. We'll save this, and then we'll view it. Six times 6 equals 36. And again, aesthetically, it's looking pretty good at this point. Next, step 8 talks about the folder structure, about clean folder structures, and about how you navigate from one folder to another. You can certainly take this in, ask me any questions you may have, but if you follow the directions I've provided so far, it should work. The great news is that brackets provides the hints. And just to show you that again, I'm going to remove the actual SRC value, and we're just put the quotation mark, and again, the bracket system gives you the options. And what JavaScript are you going to want to use? Well, our JavaScript we know is in a folder called JS, and we know it's called script.js. So it's pretty simple to make it work that way. Of course, you're always going to want to test it. We've had past assignments where some of your linked files haven't worked real well. Using the linking mechanism that's provided in brackets will help with that. But always make sure you're testing afterwards as well. Make sure you save everything and test it. The outcome of this particular assignment should be that you're given 2 prompts. The end user is given 2 prompts for a number. And those numbers are then multiplied and then displayed on the screen. Some people will say printed to the screen or echoed to the screen. The multiplication, double check it. Is it working right? Beyond that, you should have something that says the answer is. Now, in the assignment only says that you need the words the answer is followed by the number. I would suggest that it would make good sense for you to stretch yourself a little bit and make some of the aesthetic enhancements that we just talked about. Make sure there's spaces where spaces are required. Capitalize words where it makes sense, like at the beginning of a sentence. And maybe even put a period at the end of the sentence. Be creative. Do a little extra. Then zip up the project and submit it. Then you're done. Hopefully this video will help you better understand some of the things that maybe were a little awkward during our class time. Now, with this in mind, I also want to explain a little bit more about what the script actually is doing. So I'm going to go back to the script. And I want to talk specifically about what you see on my line 9 here. JavaScript is using objects. And the document is an object. And there's pieces to that object. And I just want to spend a little time on line 9 so you understand a little bit about what's happening here. Now, this can be a little tricky. As I've mentioned before, at the college where I teach, most of the JavaScript where we're actually doing object work is done in a separate class, a totally separate 15-week class, where we spend 3 hours a week for those full 15 weeks just trying to do JavaScript. So with that in mind, understand that some of this is a little bit advanced, but I did want to at least explain what's happening here. So within the document, which essentially is the web page, there is a special method available that allows us to get the element by ID. Now remember, if we go back and look at the document, there is an element that has the ID calculator. So this piece of JavaScript is saying that within the document, look for the element ID called calculator. Then inside the HTML, not inside the element, but between the opening and the closing element. So if we go back to the HTML again, between the opening element that creates the ID calculator on line 12 and the closing element that closes that p tag and thus closes the ID calculator on 16. The area in between there, the script is saying within that area, echo, say, print to screen, display, what's beyond the equal sign. And what do we want to say? We want to say the answer is, with a space, add the result of running the function, and then put a period. Now, this X is where we add the result of running the function. So where is the X defined? If we go back up to line 3, we set up a variable called X. And what the variable X is essentially saying is whatever is returned by or comes out of the function called myFunction, when we pass it G, which was the first number, as shown by line 1, and H, which is the second number, we will assign that to the letter, that result from the function will assign to the X variable. The X variable is then displayed as part of line 9 along with the static consistent strings of the answer is and the period. Hopefully this is helpful. I want to apologize for some of the technical issues we were having today. I look forward to working with you. If you have any problems with this, be sure to send me an email to my Academy email address, and I'll be sure to set up a time to work with you to work out the details of this. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Have a great day.